Mainly, unit cost is the total cost or total expenditure incurred for a particular unit. Unit cost helps to identify the percentage at each level or each element of the cost. Cost sheet is a statement which shows the cost incurred at each level of manufacture. Hello everyone, I am Meghana from the Department of Commerce, lecturing in Vidhyaashram First Grade College, the Temple of Excellence. We are in the session 1 of Unit 3, subject Accounting. In the last session, we finished with our Unit 2. Let us start with the Unit 3. Unit 3 is Unit Cost. So, let us begin with today's session. In today's session, let us discuss with Unit Cost, then Objective of Unit Cost, then Cost Sheet. Let us start with today's session. Unit cost is a total expenditure incurred by a company to produce, store and sell one unit of a particular product or services. Unit cost are synonymous with the cost of goods sold. Cost of goods sold. Mainly, unit cost is the total cost or total expenditure incurred for a particular unit. That means for a one unit, how much the cost incurred for the manufacturing or to all expenses. So here expenditure incurred by a company to produce, store and sell one unit of a particular product. So all the expenses to manufacture, store and sell, all the expenses together, the cost for one unit. So, a company manufacture goods in a bulk. So, in order to know the cost for a particular unit, that means a one unit, we are going to analyze unit cost. Under unit cost, we will get to know the cost for a single unit. Single unit. In this, accounting measure includes all the fixed and variable costs associated with the production of the goods or services. That means in unit costing, we will consider all the fixed expenses as well as variable expenses. Fixed expenses or fixed variable expenses are changing from time to time. Next, unit cost is a crucial cost measure in the operational analysis of the company. Identifying and analyzing a company's unit cost is a quick way of check if a company is producing a product effectively. That means unit costing is a crucial measurement of operational analysis of the company. It identify and analyze the ability, efficient work of the organization. By observing the unit cost per unit, you can judge the company's ability, efficient in the production process. It's the quick way of check if the company is producing effectively or efficiently. So, unit cost is cost per unit, in cost incurred for a particular unit or one unit of goods. Next, objectives of unit costing. First objective, to find the total cost and cost per unit. In unit cost, we calculate the total cost of the product as well as cost per unit. So, the number of unit produced, the total cost for the units as well as cost per unit. Overall cost plus the cost per unit. So, it helps to find out the overall cost plus the individual unit cost. Next, analysis of expenses incurred on the cost unit. So, you can analyze the expenses incurred for the cost. That means in manufacturing process, the expenses for the single product or single unit of product, then selling and distribution expenses, then factory expenses, then direct expenses. You can analyze the particular expenses under different overhead. We are going to calculate the unit cost, total cost and unit cost we are going to calculate in unit cost. So, here we can analyze the expenses under a particular unit, under a particular head. So, it helps to analyze the expenses incurred on a cost of unit. So, under which overhead you are spending more. The expenses is more in which unit. So you can analyze the cost. Then comparative study. Comparative study means we can analyze the cost per unit, compare with the previous expenses. That means from the last year information or last production expenses and present expenses. So you can compare with the two expenses or two different data. So it helps to comparative study. You can get the information in which overhead, under which overhead you are spending more money. So it helps in analyzing or compare with the other data. Next, to find the percentage of each element of cost to total cost. To find out percentage of each element of cost to total cost. Here, to produce a single unit, how much the cost is incurred. At each level, you're going to meet several expenses. Direct expenses, then manufacturing expenses, factory expenses, office expenses, administrative expenses, then selling and distribution expenses. You're going to meet expenses at a different levels. So, percentage of each element of cost to the total cost. The total of all these expenses considered as total cost. So, for the total cost, the percentage at each level. So, unit cost helps to identify the percentage at each level or each element of the cost. Next, to find out the selling price and profit. So, if we know the cost of production for a one unit, you can fix the selling price for the product as well as profit. So, profit is depend on the cost of production as well as your selling price. So, depend on the cost of production, you can fix the selling price and you can fix the margin of profit. So, it helps to fix the selling price and profit. Next, to find out tender price. The selling price of the commodity should be informed to the customers before you start producing the product. So, you need to give information, you need to give the selling price for your product priorly to the customer before start producing. So, in order to give the selling price to the customers, you will consider the previous year cost price. Based on the previous year cost, you are going to fix the selling price for the current year. So, based on the previous year cost per unit, you can fix the selling price. You can give the tender price for the customers. Tender price means you need to give quotation for the customers before they place an order. So, in order to give the tender price, unit cost is helpful. Objectives of unit cost is to give the total cost plus the cost per unit, as well as it helps in analyzing the expenses at a different level, and it helps to analyze the cost per unit. It helps to know the cost incurred for the single unit. To produce a single unit, how much the cost is incurred. So, next, comparative study. Comparative study, it helps to compare. The expenses at a different level. In which level you are going to spend more. The expenses is more at which level. Then it helps to find the percentage of expenses at each level. At each level, you are going to meet several expenses. So, you are going to measure in terms of percentage. Then it helps to find out the selling price and profit. Profit is the main objective of the organization. For the profit, they produce product and sell it to the customers. So, the profit is main objective, main intention for the organization. So, in order to fix the price, in order to know the profit as well as selling price, unit cost is important. Based on the cost of production, based on the cost of goods sold, you are going to fix the selling price as well as profit. Next, to give the tender or quotation, unit cost is important. Based on the previous year cost price, you are going to give tender or you are going to give quotation for your customers before they place an order. So, these all are the objectives of unit cost. Unit cost formula is variable cost plus fixed cost divided by total units produced. So, number of units produced. For example, if the company produced 10,000 units, so I will consider 10,000 units total number of produced. Next, variable cost. All the variable costs are fluctuating, and fixed cost. Fixed cost is fixed for the production process. So, you need to add variable and fixed cost and divided by number of unit produced. So, by this you can get the unit cost. So, cost to produce a single unit. So, this is the formula for the unit cost. For example, if the company produce 10,000 units, so consider total number of unit produced is 10,000. Total unit. Next, variable cost. Consider variable cost. Variable cost is 60,000. Then fixed cost. Fixed cost is 1 lakh. So, from this given information, now we need to calculate unit cost. That means cost per unit. So, variable cost is 60,000 plus fixed cost 1 lakh divided by total unit produced. Total unit produced is 10,000. 60,000 plus 1 lakh 60,000 divided by 10,000. So, unit cost is 16. So, unit cost is 16. To produce 1 unit, the cost is 16 rupees. 16 rupees the manufacturer has to spend to produce 1 unit. Based on this unit cost, you can fix the price, you can fix the selling price as well as margin of profit. So, you can calculate unit cost by this formula. Next, cost sheet. Cost sheet is a device used to determine and present the cost under unit costing. It is a statement of cost incurred at each level of manufacturing a product or service. In a cost sheet, all the elements of cost is taken into consideration. It includes prime cost, factory or manufacturing cost, cost of production, then cost of sales, profit or loss, etc. So, cost sheet is a statement which shows the cost incurred at each level of manufacture. So, here cost sheet is a statement which shows all the expenses incurred at each level of manufacturing. So, it includes cost sheet, it includes all the elements of cost. It includes all the elements of cost at a different level. So, it includes prime cost, factory or manufacturing, then cost of production, then cost of sale, profit or loss. It includes all the expenses or all the costs incurred for the production or manufacturing purpose. Next, the format of cost sheet. Format of cost sheet is first direct materials, direct wages, direct expenses, all the direct expenses. First, you need to consider the direct expenses. The total direct expense is called as prime cost. That means direct material plus direct wages plus direct expenses is equals to prime cost. Next, after prime cost, you need to add factory overhead. Factory overhead means it is nothing but manufacturing expenses. All the manufacturing expenses like indirect expenses, indirect wages. So, you need to add the manufacturing expenses to the prime cost. Then you will get factory cost. Next, for this, you need to add administrative overhead or administrative expenses. factory cost plus administrative expenses is equals to cost of production. So here this is the cost of production. Then add the selling and distribution expenses. Cost of production is prime cost plus factory or manufacturing expenses plus administrative overhead or administrative expenses. Then to the cost of production add selling and distribution overhead. Selling and distribution overhead. Then the total cost or cost of sales, cost of goods sold. Based on this information, you can calculate the unit cost. From this, you can calculate unit cost. So this is the format of cost sheet. Here, it shows the information, it shows the expenses at different level. Here, it shows all the direct expenses. Direct expenses, direct materials means raw materials. So the expenses for to meet the direct expenses like direct wages, direct materials, that is raw materials, then expenses. It includes all the direct expenses. Next, factory overhead. Under factory overhead, the manufacturing cost, only the manufacturing cost. It includes all the manufacturing cost. So at a different level, direct expenses separate and manufacturing expenses separate. Next, administrative expenses, administrative or office expenses. Next, selling and distribution expenses. Selling and distribution expenses. So, it divides the total cost or total expenses at a different level. You can analyze the expenses at different level. So, you can identify under which level the expense is more. So, you can take the necessary steps to reduce the cost of production, or you can take the improvement. You can take the necessary steps for the improvement. So, this is the cost sheet format. Let us solve one problem on cost sheet. From the following details, prepare cost sheet. Particulars, amount, raw material, wages, direct expenses, oil and waste, wages of foreman, electric power, office overhead, selling expenses. So, we know direct expenses, manufacturing expenses, office expenses and selling expenses. Now, we have 4 division or 4 overheads. Now, we need to classify this information into different overheads. So, raw material comes under which overhead? So, all this information you need to classify. First, raw material. Raw material, it comes under direct materials. So, it comes under direct expenses. Next, wages. Wages also direct wages comes under direct expenses. Next, direct expenses. Oil and waste. Oil and waste under manufacturing expenses or factory expenses. Oil and waste. Under manufacturing or factory overhead. Then wages for foreman. That means factory workers. So, factory overhead. Next, electric power. Electric power also comes under manufacturing. For the manufacturing purpose, you need electricity to run the machineries. Next, office overhead. It comes under office overhead only. Then selling expenses. It comes under selling and distribution overhead. So, you need to classify the information into different overheads. So, now we can prepare the cost sheet. So, cost sheet format is particulars, amount. So, first you need to write all the direct expenses. So, make a total of direct expenses. The total of direct expenses is called prime cost. After prime cost, just add all the factory overhead. So, add prime cost plus factory overheads. The result is factory cost. Then for the factory cost, you need to add all the administrative or office expenses. So the result is cost of production. For the cost of production, you need to add selling and distribution expenses. So now just prepare the cost sheet. Cost sheet format, particulars, amount. First, write down all the direct expenses. Direct expenses first. Raw material 80,000. So write down raw material 80,000. Next, wages 20,000. Wages is direct expense, right? Wages 20,000. Next, direct expenses 4,000. Direct expenses 4,000. Now make a total 80,000 plus 20,000 plus 4,000. 1,04,000. 1,04,000 is prime cost. $1,04,000 is prime cost. For the prime cost, you need to add first one all the direct expenses. Second one, you need to add factory or manufacturing expenses. So under factory overhead, first one, oil and waste. 200. You can write it in inner column, 200. Then wages of foreman, 2,000. Wages of foreman, 2,000. Next, electric power, 400. Electric power, 400. Total factory or manufacturing expenses is 2,600. So write 2,600. Next, just add 1,04,000 plus 2,600. 1,04,000 plus 2,600 is 1,06,600. So 1,06,600 is factory cost. Factory cost. Next, after factory cost, you need to add office expenses. Office overhead, 2,000. So write office overhead. Office overhead is 2,000. So add 2,000. So 1,08,600. 1,08,600 is cost of production. 1,08,600 cost of production. So for this you need to add selling and distribution expenses. Selling and distribution expenses is 1000. So write 1000. Selling and distribution expenses 1000. So total 1,08,600 plus 1000. 1,09,600. 1,09,600 is total cost or cost of goods. So this is the solution. So next problem, just look at the second problem. In a factory, 2000 unit of product X were manufactured in the month of September 2018. From the following figures obtained from the costing records, prepare a cost sheet showing the total cost and cost per unit. Here 20,000 unit of product X. That means total number of unit is 20,000. Next, you need to calculate total cost plus cost per unit. Total overall cost plus cost per unit. So here we have all the expenses or all the cost details. Direct material consumed, direct wages, other direct expenses, then factory overhead, office and administrative overhead, selling and distribution overhead. So from this information, we need to prepare the cost sheet which shows the total cost. In the previous problem, here in this problem, we have calculated only the total cost. But here, addition with the total cost, you need to calculate cost per unit. So here cost per unit, in order to calculate the cost per unit, the formula is unit cost is equals to variable cost plus fixed cost divided by total unit produced. So here we need to calculate the cost per unit as well as total cost. Now direct material consumed, it comes under direct expenses. Direct wages, that is also direct expenses. Next, other direct expenses, that is direct expenses. Next, factory overhead, factory or manufacturing overhead. Next, office and administrative, office expenses, selling and distribution. So now we classify the expenses into different levels. So it is easy to prepare the cost sheet. So this is the solution. Particulars, total cost, cost per unit. So here cost of direct material is 2 lakh. Here cost of direct material consumed is 2 lakh. So write 2 lakh. First prepare the total cost. Next, cost of direct wages. Direct wages is 1,60,000. Then other direct expenses is 40,000. 2 lakh plus 1,60,000 plus 40,000 is 4 lakh. 4 lakh is prime cost. For the prime cost, you need to add factory overhead or factory expenses. Factory expenses is 80,000. So add 80,000. 4 lakh plus 80,000 is 4,80,000. 4,80,000 is factory cost or worker cost. For this, you need to add office and administrative expenses. That is 60,000. The result is cost of production. Next, for this, add selling and distribution expenses. Selling and distribution expenses 60,000. 5,40,000 plus 60,000 is 6 lakh. 6 lakh is considered as total cost. This is normal cost sheet. In addition with this, we need to calculate cost per unit at each level. So here direct material is 2 lakh. 2 lakh for 20,000 unit. Here they have given in a factory 20,000 unit of product X were manufactured. That means total unit is 20,000. For 20,000 cost is 2 lakh. For 20,000 cost is 2 lakh. We need to calculate cost per unit. Cost per unit means for 1 unit. For 1 unit we need to calculate. So 2 lakh divided by 20,000. 2 lakh divided by 20,000. So cost per unit is 10 rupees. Next 1,60,000. 1,60,000 is for 20,000 units. So we want for 1 unit. For 1 unit 8 rupees. So 1,60,000 divided by 20,000. Again 40,000. 40,000 divided by 20,000. So we get 2 rupees. So total prime cost for a 1 unit is 20,000. So we can get it by total of this 10 plus 8 plus 2 is 20, or else 4 lakh. 4 lakh divided by 20,000. 4 lakh divided by 20,000 is 20. So in the same way, you just calculate for the factory overhead, administrative overhead and selling and distribution overhead. So we need to calculate total cost as well as cost per unit. So this is the solution. So this is all about today's session. Let us meet in the next session with some more topic. Until then, keep watching. Thank you.